I think I'm probably out of being a junior development coach for now almost 30 years and a talent development coach for Tennis Australia. My thoughts were a lot to do with what I've saw with my son, but then on the other hand, I've had that question a lot. When should they play tennis? When should they start? It's like I just keep saying, as long as you got a racket on the ground, TV's on, watching some tennis, you'll see if they're interested or not. Uh, there are a lot of parents that will force them into it because they know that as they get older, it's really hard to learn the game as much as it is at the early stage. So I've seen a lot of parents force their kids out to learn tennis, no matter what, because the kid doesn't realize the benefit of it when it gets in the 20s and 30s and 40s, that those beginning lessons help them later on pick up the game if they want to use it. Um, so that's sort of the two bars, but my bar is always the kid's got to want to do it and love it, and just let them enjoy it and love it. Watch the TV, pick up the racket. If a kid's really good with picking up a racket, throw a bunch of balloons around the house and let him smack the balloons around, and that teaches them racket head acceleration and watching coordination, the whole lot.
Yeah.
So.
All right. What I just realized is my microphone's been muted this whole time.
Oh no! Wow. So
Yeah.
they can hear me.
They can hear you, but they can't hear me. So
Okay,
my.
well, everyone that can hear me, doesn't matter what Shaun says. I tip anyway. So our final tips, you're actually only hearing me, so that's all good. My final tip would be pickleballers. Anyone's a pickleballer, get your kids into it as soon as possible and realize you can extend to a mini tennis court with mini rackets and mini balls. And it is really important that you could actually do both. And that's what I think is probably my biggest tip for pickleballers is there is a real advantage to kids hitting with a pickleball and hitting with a little bat to eventually moving into a tennis racket and a tennis ball.
Okay. Pickleballers. Even if you're not a
Yeah,
pickleballer, if you're thinking about it, it's an easy transitional racket sport. It's how you get started. That's easy, like ping pong first. Except the
correct.
problem is
Yeah,
ping pong, you need to be a certain height. So it's not like I can
yeah,
teach my 2-year-old to play ping pong.
right, right. And it just, the event, like what I've understood about pickleball is very early contact. It's a lot to do with the hands and the wrist. So there's a lot of advantages to learning this way to then eventually learning the full stroke as on a tennis ball.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, how much time you got? You want to go back through them?
We have to do it quickly then.
Okay, let's do it quickly. All right, tip number 91. The question is how to play doubles with a partner you've never played with or don't know well.
Yes, make sure you open up the communication and the dialogue. I feel like I'm in deja vu right
No, the
now.
first it was just a practice round. Now we really know what we want to say.
Yeah, make sure you keep dialogue. And I should have said keep positive dialogue between you and your partner. And at the change of ends, make sure you keep it talking about tactics. That way, you're not necessarily internally thinking of yourselves all the time. You're focusing on working things together and how to beat your opponents because that's pretty much what doubles is all about.
All right, and how to get the most out of my tennis lessons as a tennis lesson taker.
Yeah, I would just try to keep get the dialogue open with your coach. Sometimes I don't feel like clients talk enough, and the coach obviously, I'm not the tip isn't for the coach, but hopefully they take a second to listen to you because it is very interesting when you hear what a client is going through, how much better the coach can shape what needs to be done to create the success for both of them. So I would say to get more out of your lesson, take the time to open up and share what it is you feel and think, because that doesn't happen too often. In 60 minutes, most coaches, they're like, okay, they want to hit many balls and they want to get as much out of the lesson. But really, they can't. Sometimes you got to take a few seconds just to hear and feel things, and then you can shape it and progress even better.
All right, and that's number 92. But if we
Yep.
jump to number 93 of our
Yep.
100 tips that we're doing, you've got the opposite end of that one, which is a similar tip for the coach to open up and share more, right?
Yeah, just with the coach on the coach side, just making sure that you try to hear and ask them what they're feeling and thinking, because you'll be surprised as you're repeating one, two, or three things that we say, hey, you're only focusing on this. They could be focusing on 10 things, or they could be focusing still on the last lesson that you did, and you feel like you're progressing forward, you know? So I think hearing and getting that dialogue open, it can really help progression a lot faster.
Yep. All right. And can I play with just any racket, or is there an objective answer to the right racket for me?
Okay, so first question there is you can play with any racket. Anybody can play with any racket,
Sure.
but really sucks when you're hitting with an aluminum, no string tension, out of Walmart, trying to hit the game. Really tough. And I've taught this, I've shown this to many, many people. But there is now the proof of the science is yes, there is a certain racket, certain string tension that does advantage a player. You know, your game style, or if you want to progress. I've seen a lot of people come to me and go, I want to learn topspin. I want to hit through the ball. And I'm like, well, your racket is, the head is too heavy to get that acceleration through. So when they change your racket, boom, their technique changed, their game changed, their life changes straight away. So yes, there is definitely something about the right racket for the right player.
And your example of you've found the right racket for you and you've stuck with it for more than a decade, right?
Yeah, I've been with probably my Roger Federer sticks for 15, maybe longer than that, maybe 20 years. Um, and it's, I've experimented. As I got older, I thought maybe I should hit with more power, but I keep going right back to the field racket, go right back to my control. So yeah, it is a very important thing. You can stick to a certain racket if it's working, but you do have the options to understand that there are different rackets for different game styles, no question.
And personalization matters. I give the plug to guys like Craig Brotman, who are experts in racket personalization. So if your coach isn't an expert in that, you can always
Yep.
find someone to help you out with that. Next one is
Yep.
for a young parent, or at least a parent of a young child, before tennis lessons. Is there anything I can do with my, say, 1 or 2 year old to find out if they enjoy tennis, to maybe encourage it a little bit without duct taping a racket to their hand? What can we do as a parent to help them become a better athlete? We talk about throwing, that kind of thing. What's a tip for a parent of a young kid?
Put Tennis Channel on every TV around the house. Just let them
There's a
watch
plug.
it. Let them see it. Let them see nothing else but that.
Yeah.
And then just have rackets on the ground, little plastic rackets that they can't affect or hurt anything, but just little rackets around on the ground. You watch them just pick it up. They'll pick it up and start swinging it away. And if they really don't, then there's a good chance it's just not sport driven. I mean, we can look at people in the world these days, and it's tend to art or sport, but they're sort of the two directions that people tend to go. Or, I guess books or movies, they say that as well. But at the same time, what I've probably seen the most of is some kids they're just not into sport. They don't like the competitiveness of it. I've seen some great athletes that are like talented, but just not into the whole ego. And I mean, sport really does drive that.
Yeah, having the killer mentality. All right, so number 96, you've got a few tips for us, um, going 96 through 99, and then we'll save our one tip to rule them all for the end.
Yeah, I just said coaches, make sure you try to hit in different areas of the court. Make sure you always involve a live ball so that the parent, or the child, or the athlete, or the student can walk off the court feeling that they've accomplished what they can do in live ball as to what you're working with. So always incorporate a live ball situation in each lesson is what I would recommend a coach. And sometimes if you feel like they just can't get the live ball, then, like I said, feed in different areas and get them to still work on the things you're getting to work on, and then go into live ball. And make them just realize that three balls is great. It doubles. You hit three balls cross court, that's about all you're going to get. Some guy's going to come on and someone's going to volley, or someone's going to lob, or someone's going to error. So if someone hits a three ball rally back with you, that's a pretty solid. So go through those things. Craig Shaughnessy, big punch out to him. He's the one who proved that the game is 0 to 4 shots. So coaches, stop hitting the 50 balls in a row. It just doesn't happen that way, and especially not for amateurs, you know. So, 0 to 4, the sport is on and off as well. 30 seconds on, 30 seconds up, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds up. We don't hit balls for 10 minutes straight. I mean, so just be conscious of these things because it will improve your lessons and people will just come back for more. So anyway, there's my tips for coaches.
And you've got a non-negotiable tip for parents.
Yes, so parents, just understand what non-negotiables are, right? And then what I mean by that is come up with things that either at home or on the court or at school, just things that, and come up with 3 or 5 tops. And then when the child is doing better and better and feels like they're being very consistent, some will ask for more. Some will actually, you just go, okay, you've done really well. I'm going to give you a high five for those 5 that you've been following. Now we're going to go with the next 5, and you just see them getting better and better. But the expectations aren't so high all the time if there's too many, or if there are too many non-negotiables that keep changing, right? If the bar keeps changing for a child, that brings down their self-esteem. It makes it harder on them because they feel like they can't achieve everything that the parent is looking for. And that goes for coaches as well, but we're focusing on parents. If I would suggest three to 5 tops and just stick to them. And on the other hand, a child can give you 3 to 5 as well. And that really helps because now you've got, a buy-in on both sides. That can be a really cool one. If you sit down with your child and say, okay, what's 3 to 5 things? And he might just say, I don't like you pacing on the court. I don't like you saying anything while I'm playing. There's all these things that can happen by actually listening. And then it goes both ways then, right? If the parent is doing what the child is asking, then the child should do what the parent's asking.
Yeah, and I think that's 2 tips because that's the parent needs to be able to do it for the child, make sure your bag is ready in the morning, whatever it is, whatever they're responsible for. Responsibility is key here, but then allow the child to give you some because that creates a more manageable relationship to be able to say, you know what, I've given you some non-negotiables. Do you have anything for me? Let's negotiate our non-negotiables.
Yeah, well, and it's not really negotiating because your non-negotiables are yours and their non-negotiables are theirs, and that's it. So there's not really, the only time would be a negotiation is if they say, I want a fresh restring every single time I play.
Right. An unreasonable one needs to be negotiated. That's all I'm saying.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So one more, and then we've got our one tip to rule them all at the end. You got one more for me?
Yeah, I would just say adults, just think about, if you're an adult, think about your age bracket, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. There are certain restrictions. When you start to get restricted, and when I say restricted is joint mobility or just cardiovascular or, our eyes, right? Our eyes, as we get older, we don't perceive the ball or see the ball as well as we should. Okay, so try to adjust for that. Do not play like you played in the 20s, play in the 30s. If you're 50, you've got to adjust and figure out a different game style. And that could be compact. That could be all sorts of different things, but just start to identify that because I see so many people, adult-wise, they get frustrated. Like, oh man, I used to be able to do this all the time. It's like, it's not that age group anymore, Things aren't the same anymore. And you can get that same benefit if you make some adjustments. So work with your coach on that. Get them to see and help you on that. And so anyway, that will be my tip for an adult tennis.
And we've done two specific episodes on that topic. We've done a what to change after 40, 10 minutes of tennis, and a what to change after 50, where we've had discussions specifically on those two. So that's really good.
Yep.
All right, so last one that I will ask, which is our number 100. If you could only give me one tip, if you could only give, I don't know, anybody one tip, is there anything, I know it's impossible to ask. It's like king of tennis, right? If you could just give me one tip and you couldn't tell me anything else, is there one tip you would pick?
Yes. Don't get in the game if you're not prepared to move.
To move, like I got to move to Puerto Rico to go hang out with you as my coach?
No, geez. I mean, move physically. You've got to be able to move. You've got to be able to, you need some athletic ability about you to learn this sport because I've seen too many try to get into the sport and end up with poor injuries and invest a lot of money and do a lot of things and end up actually going the opposite way to tennis. Tennis is a sport. It's, if I've tried to mention to a lot of people, if you can play, you're in an elite area of the population of the world for the reason of how complex this sport is, how physical the sport is, and if you can play, you're in an elite community that there's not many of us all around the world. Yes, it is a big sport around the world, but it doesn't mean that everybody can play tennis. Now, that being said, the USTA will kill me right now because they want everybody playing tennis. But on the other hand, I've just seen too much opposite happen. You know, I like to see people get themselves a little more in shape, do this, do that, and then play tennis, not the other way around. Like, I'm going to go play tennis to get in shape. Now I got an elbow problem. Now I got a shoulder problem. Now I got a knee problem. And I did my ankle last time, you know? And it's like, okay, so let's just think about this first. So that would probably be my biggest tip is just be sure that you're in good shape. And it doesn't mean you have to be a marathon athlete, but just know that it is very difficult to learn and play this sport without some kind of athletic ability or physical ability, I should say.
Remember that it is a sport and appreciate that. Justin Yo, this has been way more than 10 minutes of tennis. But we got through 100 tips. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir. We
Yeah,
will follow
actually,
up.
I'm going to just, you know what? We're at 100. I'm going to throw one last one in there.
Okay.
Actually, you got to love it. You just got to love the game. I mean, watching the US Open recently, look at all the actors, look at all the movie stars, look at all the other sports people that come and watch.
Mhm.
You know, they love the game. They love the competition. They love what it draws, the drama, the whole works. So you got to love the game. So that's probably my other one. Is you if you're not in love with it, it's a really hard sport to get into.
Go play chess. Go find something else. Go
Go
find
play
something. Go play pickleball. Maybe you'll love that because that's an interesting new love that everybody has. Find something you do love. Get a hobby that you enjoy is probably
Yeah,
the key there.
yeah, just love it. It's really after watching the US Open, the biggest thing I could recognize, you know, Kyrgios is out hitting the ball with Matthew McConaughey on center court, right? These people just they passionately love what it brings, the game. So that's probably one of the things I would say is make sure you know that's what you feel. Otherwise, find something that does.
There you go. 101 tips. We did it. Justin, we'll talk
See ya.
about doing another 100 tips. Thank you, sir. 10 minutes of
Keep
tennis.
rolling.
We'll see you next week.
See you guys. Wow,